Well, what we witness here every day fills our cup because each day we are watching our horses interact with people who don't know anything about horses, who come here with no preconceived notions and often with a little bit of fear. But an experience that I will specifically share was early in my days here at Therapeutic Horses of Saratoga. It was a wintry day. It was very, very snowy. We had lots of snow on the ground, and I had the opportunity to observe an equine assisted psychotherapy session with a young girl. She was probably 8 or so years old, and she was here, as I learned, because anxiety and social interactions were really troubling her. She was having a hard time at school, and what she said to her therapist was, when I sit down at the lunch table at school, all the other kids sort of get up and move away. It was heartbreaking. So I know that was the story, and I watched that little girl walk into a paddock with her therapist on this snowy day. And I sat there quietly watching the therapist interact with the little girl. She was starting to make a snowball because there was plenty of snow to work with. And in this paddock were two of our horses, far in the far corner of the paddock. They were nowhere near us. And as she and her therapist talked for a while, they were also not inspired to come nearby because this little girl was exuding a fair amount of anxiety. But as the therapist and the little girl continued their conversation, and as she continued to make this snowball, she was distracted from that story and started talking about herself, and her energy changed. And at some point in the session, the therapist asked her to look over her shoulder to see where the horses were. And they, in fact, had moved closer. They hadn't come up to stand right behind her, but they had, in fact, started becoming a little more curious as who this little person was and what was she doing with the snowball. And they just wanted to get a little better look at it. The session unfolded slowly and quietly over the hour. There was no fireworks. There wasn't some big aha moment. But as the conversation continued and the therapist and the little girl talked about her emotions and her feelings, and by the end of the session, the horses realized that this little girl wasn't a threat. She wasn't scary. She was actually pretty happy, and they wanted to get involved. And when the little girl looked over her shoulder and saw that the horses were standing right behind her at the end of the session and wanted her to pet them on the nose, that moment of seeing this little girl's face light up and feel like that she was likable and liked by those horses, that moment really filled my cup. And I also recognize that that's what's happening here every day, is that our therapists aren't changing the people and they aren't getting the horse to do anything. They're just giving that person the experience of feeling liked, seen, and trusted, so that when they go back into the world, when they go back and face their difficult situation, they have a little more confidence that they can be the person that the horse saw. That one little quiet frosty morning here at THS Farm is one that I go back to time and time again, because I know it matters and I know that it's helping, and I know it isn't a big show. You know, smile on my face that it's like a yoga practice. If you know that you can come back to that moment, then you can get it wherever you are. And we are giving that moment to that little girl. We're giving them to veterans. We're giving them to family members. We're giving them to individuals who've lost someone, that if they know that they can feel better for a minute, then they can feel better again, and they can replicate it in the community. That's really the magic. For a moment, not only did the little girl learn that she can be liked and likable, but the mom knows that she's doing something that's actually giving her daughter a better chance at success in the world. And we do find that a lot of parents bring their children here for horseplay for that sense of respite. Individuals who are high functioning on the autism spectrum find a lot of success with our horseplay program because they're not coming for therapy. They're coming for an experiential, recreational, educational experience. It's the people who brought their friends and family members here that are feeling a sense of, I did something and it actually worked. It's making my loved one feel better.